Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting of Monday, July 22nd, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, motion to accept the agenda. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the agenda of the regular meeting of Council on Monday, July 22nd, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes, regular meeting of Council, June 24th, 2024. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cadell, that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Regular meeting of Council, June 24th, 2024.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, no delegations this evening. Staff report, moving into administrative department. Amend civil marriage solemnization service and issuing marriage license bylaw. Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report number AD 2024-06, amend civil marriage solemnization services and issuing marriage licenses bylaw, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry passes bylaw number 33-2024, being an amendment to bylaw 36-2022, and that bylaw 33-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted this 22nd day of July 2024.
Okay, thank you. Sarah. Jenna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's me today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in the fall of 2022, Council passed a bylaw, the bylaw 36-222, authorizing the civil marriage service to be performed within North Glengarry. This bylaw also authorized the clerk to delegate their powers to other people, generally the staff. So basically today, I'm putting forth this bylaw to amend 36-2022 because there's been staffing changes. So we're going to remove the former economic development Natalie Charette, and we're going to replace her with Chantal Lapierre. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? How many marriages have we performed since?
There's been quite a few. So far this year, I've done I'd say about 5. I know she's done 5. We about 5 this year, so 10 altogether.
Huh. And
last year it was the same thing. We're coming into more of the wedding season, so we'll see more and more coming through. And it'd be easier to have 3 people, especially if some of them are bilingual as well.
I've never been invited back after my one, so I don't know what that's all about. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to lottery license bylaw. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move on myself, seconded by Councillor Madden, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report AD 2024-07, lottery license bylaw, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry approves bylaw number 35-2024, being a bylaw to provide for lottery licensing in the Township of North Glengarry, and that bylaw 35-2024 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted this 22nd day of July 2024.
Thank you, Councillor.
And might I just add, the 250-page document or whatever was very interesting reading.
Well, the minute you open it up and you see your package is 385 pages, you get a little nervous there, but it was 250 pages. So go ahead, Jenna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will open by apologizing for that. I hope you read it thoroughly from end to end. I know it's a good read. But according to the Order in Council 208-2024, a municipality council has the authority to issue lottery licenses to religious and charitable organizations in order to help raise funds for poverty relief, educational advancement, healthcare, and other community beneficial programs. So this bylaw that I'm submitting today is to develop a document that specifies the standards and rules and regulations while issuing these licenses. It does follow the very long document that I attached. So this kind of helps it make it more organized, transparent, and even through the license issuing process. Thank you.
Okay, great. Questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many licenses do we have, like, out there?
Open right now, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. Open right now, I'd have to double check, but we have about 15 for this year. We generally do around that. It's usually the same organizations over and over again for the same events. There's not very often that we see new ones. But I would say about 15, 20 a year. So it would be beneficial. And not only that, it's just that way we have a resource to look back on and say, hey, as per this bylaw, so-and-so, we can only issue this.
And they do have to, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
They do have to name the charity that they're doing stuff for?
Yeah, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it does have to be a non-for-profit charitable organization.
Okay.
They do have to fill out an application, and they do have to put their names and what the funds are for, and when the date is. And they do also have to fill out a report as well afterwards.
I'm asking those questions because a few years ago, we used to get some monies for the July 1st fireworks out of the break open tickets at the Genuine, I believe. Is that still going?
So what used to happen was they would give money, that was the Chamber of Commerce. They were the ones that were,
Okay.
I used to do the lottery licenses back then. And then it moved to I think it's the Lions Club now that get the full benefit. So
Okay.
some of that money I think does go into it, but
Okay.
Those go for kids. Break opens, the benefit is for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. yep, so Massey feeds us out, so. Go ahead, Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just having gone through the process of renewing a raffle license for the Legion a week ago, and Jenna was right on everything, and you have to provide all your accounting, your who's getting the prizes or the benefits, and it was very, well put together, and Jenna guided me through it with holding my hand the whole way.
Awesome. That's great. Go ahead, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one little language thing in subsection 2 of definitions. The way it reads, it kind of indicates that a religious organization has to be included because it says, and includes a religious organization,
Okay.
instead
Yeah,
of just,
okay.
and includes religious organizations.
Okay, so, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, would you prefer and/or?
You can do and/or,
Yeah,
yeah, or
okay.
just includes religious organizations.
Okay,
Just that it's not so specific. It was just a little thing that I read that didn't sit well.
okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Madden was showing off that he read the complete bylaw.
I know.
And I mentioned this
Nice.
to him yesterday, and I said I would point it out that when he said it, that I was proud of him. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Thank you, Jenna. Moving on to Treasury Department Funding Agreement for the Renewed Canada Community Building Fund 2024-2034. Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report TR 2024-12, funding agreement for the Renewed Canada Community Building Fund 2024-2034, and that bylaw 34-2024 be read a first, second, third time and enacted this 22nd day of July 2024 in open council.
Okay, thank you. Zoe, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 10-year agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for the transfer of CCBF funds ended in March of this year. The new agreement will be in place from 2024 until 2034. Signing this agreement is a requirement of receiving CCBF funds, and a bylaw must be passed as a condition of the agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's good news to see, getting a stabilized amount of money. This is what we've been arguing for every year. It helps us to budget. So any questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
This is the increase over every 2 years, whatever, that's good.
Oh, very good. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to second quarter variance report. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report TR 2024-13, second quarter variance report for information purposes only.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff have analyzed the budget as of June 30th and provided comments. This exercise allows staff and management to review where they are in their budgets for the year and be aware of what their spending is to date.
So just to start, is this a real surprise on the insurance aspect of it? You know, it just seems like that's the predominant one as we go through. You know, there's a lot that look like, oh my God, 292% and it's $500, but this one just seems to be.
For the insurance, yes, it is, through you, Mr. Mayor, it is higher than I believe what was anticipated originally, but we'll review before the 2025 budget and ensure the figure is correct.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Just a follow-up question on the same topic. I could be wrong about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have the same problem last year? Like, why is it, like, our insurance company isn't saying to us, okay, well, this is what you need, this is what it's gonna cost you, we embed it in our budget and it's done? Like, what's the deal?
Through
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. So there is a bit of a time gap with that. We do get an estimation earlier in the year, and I think this year with the changeover, the information that was there was deemed to be correct at the time, and then we actually get the bound copy of the insurance policy not till January, February. So there's a bit of a time gap there. I can tell you, though, we are looking for a new insurance broker, so we'll be putting forth an RFP. That may clear up some of that inaccuracy go forward as well.
Like, I understand increases have been happening across the board. That's not, you know, we don't, I understand we don't have any control over that, but these insurance companies need to be accountable for their quotes. You know, that's not okay that they're doing that to us, because we end up with a deficit at the end of the year, and because they're not giving us good numbers. So I think a little pressure is in order.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
I'd just like to thank Joey for the nice report. Like, usually we don't get these reports till later in the year and pretty much all over. And then the color highlights too that you use, that brings our attention right there instead of looking for something. So, yeah, thanks for a nice report.
She said you would like the crayon colors. Just questions or comments? No. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay. Tandem truck borrowing bylaw, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report TR 2024-14, tandem truck borrowing bylaw 36-2024, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry authorizes the Mayor and Director of Finance Treasurer to sign all documentation to finance 2 tandem trucks with the Royal Bank of Canada, and the bylaw 36-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of funds for financing of capital 2 tandem trucks, be read a first, second, and third time and adopted in open council this 22nd day of July 2024.
Thank you, Councillor. Zoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council authorized the purchase of 2 tandem trucks through the 2024 budget. Staff have not received the final invoice yet, but the trucks are estimated to be delivered in early August. The township will need to finance $800,000 through long-term debt over a 15-year period. RBC can offer a rate of 4.99% for a 3-year term. Staff are recommending this option as we're hopeful that the rates will decrease before the next renewal. We also approached Infrastructure Ontario for rates, but they can only provide a rate for 15 years, and staff believe that rates will decrease during the 15-year period, and a shorter term will be more beneficial.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Tim. 15 years, is that what our standard would be for these trucks to last?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they are, we're expecting 15 years out of them at the very least. We do 18 years is sort of what we tend to run them at, and before they really need replacing.
Okay, thank you. And what would we get for a sale price on a used one at 18 years?
So the optimum time to sell them is actually at that 15 years,
Right.
because there's still a lot of useful life in them, and you can still get them safety really easily, and you can get a good, $40,000 to $50,000 out of them. It's once you go past that and you really have problems with the frame and things start to rust out, that you don't get as good a return, and you're down to $10,000 for a truck instead of 50.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, just maybe to be a little bit more clear, this is the same trucks that we're gonna use it for the plows? Yeah, okay. So because tandem trucks looks quite expensive, but if we say plow truck, comes out probably a little bit better in the optics.
Yeah, sure, for
Through
sure.
you, Mr. Mayor, actually, these are, we use them for many purposes. So they're primarily spec'd to be able to plow snow, but unlike, say, the counties, we use them also for all of our operations during the summer as well.
Okay, further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Thank you, Zoe. Planning, Building, and Bylaw Enforcement Department, pre-servicing agreement. I'm sorry, when I read this, I did not see that it was for the Trillium Landing development, so I, at this point, will declare a conflict of interest. I read through it, but I didn't read that it was specifically for the Trillium Landing, so I will declare a conflict of interest and ask the Deputy Mayor to please take over the meeting.
Okay. So,
I have the motion.
you got a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of North Glengarry authorizes the CAO clerk to enter into a pre-servicing agreement with Alcor Homes Incorporated for the Trillium Landing subdivision development.
Okay, thank you. We pass it over to Peter Young, the Director of Planning Services for the SDG. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Williams and Council. Typically when a developer is getting close to getting their subdivision done, they'll be required to enter into a subdivision agreement with municipality. Part of that is putting up usually 100% security, so that if something goes wrong, the developer has to walk away, the township can still have money to finish off the development. But what a lot of municipalities are also doing is a pre-servicing agreement. So it's kind of an interim agreement that allows the developer to get started on the project while they're finalizing all their legal documents. So they would enter into a contract with the municipality to say, we want to go ahead at our own risk and start getting some of the infrastructure in. Once the subdivision is registered, then they'll have to put the full security, but usually it's about 50 to 200,000 that they put up front. And then when they actually go to register and sell the homes, they'll have to put the rest in. But this helps reduce the borrowing or improve the borrowing capacity of the developer. And you can see in the report, there's Ottawa, Castleman, Nation, North Dundas, North Stormont. A lot of municipalities are starting to use this tool. So recommending that council authorize this pre-servicing agreement, and then in the future, probably later this fall, we'll come back to council with the full subdivision agreement with all the details in order to get the final subdivision plan approved. And I can just give an update that they are hoping to start to do infrastructure construction kind of this summer, fall, I guess, and then 2025 would be the first new homes, and then about 8 to 10 homes per year, and then see how demand goes, how fast they finish their phases.
Excellent, thank you for that, Peter. Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Massey.
So the developer's gonna start like by doing the infrastructure, like sewer and pipes in the ground and stuff like that. So, but they have to do it so they meet up with our codes. Is that right? Like they're not just doing willy-nilly with their specification, their specific specification that they need to follow to our specification. Okay.
That's correct, and through your Public Works Department and the consulting engineer, those plans I think have already been reviewed and generally signed off. There's a few maybe like lighting that might, not sure if some of those are finalized, but in terms of the underground work,
Okay.
That's been all worked off and signed off by a consulting engineer.
So
as well.
basically, what the old agreements were, like, it was too much money at today's cost for the contractor to put as a bond or something, like it was way too much money to secure, yeah.
Yeah, they would have had to put all the money up front to the municipality, then paid all their contractors, and then kind of waited until all the paperwork was done, till they could start to get their money. This means that they don't have to put as much money up front, and as soon as they register the subdivision, because they've already built a good chunk of it, instead of having to put maybe, let's say $1 million up, now, because they built a lot of it, they only put up 500,000, so it kind of reduces how much money they have to put up front, and then they can start to recoup their costs earlier.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Questions, comments? Yes, Councillor.
Peter, just, so are they putting everything in the ground for the whole subdivision? Is that the plan, or what, how do they, or is that phased as well?
Yeah, at this point, they're probably looking at phase one, so it would be the east side, like closer to the cenotaph, would be
Yes.
where they're doing the phase one. There's a few things they'll have to do. They have like a turnaround, because it'll be a dead end for a short amount. That'll be part of the phasing. But then we've already kind of looked at the designs for the phase two, so we know how it'll all fit together. But they only want to build phase one, so the first kind of half at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Peter. I just want to say, I personally think it's a good idea. Read through it. It looks pretty tight. It looks like we're well protected on the backside of it if anything does go wrong. But also, it's a fantastic tool for them to be able to get in the ground and get this moving. We know that there's demand, and we know that there's people waiting for this to happen. So I think it's a great way just to help everybody move this forward.
Yeah, agreed. I think that this is, it kind of incentivizes them getting the shovels in the ground, which is good that we can do that. I do have one question though. What is, let's say things went south. What would be the risk to the municipality?
So the risks, generally, there's a bunch of provisions there in terms of they are not allowed to hook up to the township infrastructure without any permission from municipality. The roads won't be open, so what would happen is you might have a road that's sitting there that's no one's, that's not a township road, it's not, you have, let's say, water and sewer that aren't actually physically hooked up, and it's just kind of sitting there until someone else buys the property. But it's not like it's the township's infrastructure that the township's have assumed and now has to maintain. It's all strictly on private property. Once the subdivision agreement is signed and the subdivision is approved, that's when all the property and the roads get transferred to the township. But this would all be on private property, so if the developer walked away, it would just be on their own, it'd be through property standards or that type of bylaw, and it wouldn't be municipal infrastructure.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, moving on to OPA 24, Rural Consent Policies and Review Criteria Update. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cadell, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives staff report number BP 2024-23, OPA 24 Rural Consent Policies and Review Criteria Update, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry supports resetting the severance date in the county official plan to January the 1st, 2024, and that up to 2 severances per lot of record be permitted, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry supports permitting 1 additional severance per lot, provided that the applicable review criteria are satisfied.
Okay, thank you. Peter.
Thank you, Mayor McDonald and Council. Right now, if someone wants to sever in the rural area, we look at what did the township look like in 2001, and they could have up to 2 severances per rural lot. Obviously, they have to meet other policies such as the county roads or well and septic, all those types of things. Right now, we're reviewing all the growth management throughout SDNG, and through this process, we're looking at resetting those dates, and the recommendation for North Glengarry is to January 1st, 2024. Also, right now, you can have up to 2 severances, and we're proposing something that would be a 2+1. So once, you know, if someone gets the 2 severances, they've been built on, and there's room for another one, then they'd be allowed up to 3 severances. When we look at the number of severances in North Glengarry, I think this will just support rural growth in general. It won't necessarily cause a huge jump. You can see there's only maybe 10 to 15 a year, but it'll be more flexible for people that are applying for the severances. And just at the bottom, you can see what those criteria were, that there's no land use conflicts, not adding use for services, that, you know, there's water, septic, all those type of things. So with the other municipalities, North Dundas wanted to keep the date at 2006. They're pretty close to Ottawa, get a lot of severance pressure there. They'd rather have that going to some of the villages, the Hallvilles that are close. Most of the other municipalities resetted the date to 2024, but only up to 2 severances. But us looking and speaking with Jacob about you know, the type of development in North Glengarry, and there's only so many rural areas that have potential as well. We recommended up to 3 lots for North Glengarry, and mainly you're not right beside you know, the Cornwalls or the Ottawas where you get that extra pressure. I think this will be a good balance, still permitting the development in the villages, but also allowing severance for those in the rural areas.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the past, we've seen that, and I know it's kind of specified in here that it doesn't, as long as the SDNG, the counties approve the entrance. So sometimes they don't want to allow an entrance on let's say, La Hill Road or something, and it blocks that creation of a new lot. Is there going to be more openness on the county's part to allow the interest?
Well, I can go ahead.
I could just speak to it right now. Right now, we don't have any direction from county council to review those policies in particular. So the county road up policies, the 300 meters between some of the entrances, right now that's not proposed to change. So we asked our transportation department if they felt they should be reviewed, and they felt that those policies are working and should stay the same. Ultimately, if county council gives us a different direction, we could look at that, but right now we're not looking at the county road entrance policies.
So I've asked for that to come forward. I wanted it at this committee of the whole meeting that we just had, but we knew that it was going to be a long one, and we thought we'd wait till Ben DeHaan comes back from working as the interim CAO at North Dundas. It's something we've talked about a lot. I don't know that we'll see many changes on, say, a County Road 18, but there may be some opportunity for changes on, say, the La Hill Road or some of these roads that don't have the higher traffic. I think that's what councillors are looking at. You know, sometimes you go in and you see that they, you know, what we don't want is ribbon development in an 80 zone, but you know, sometimes, you know, we have all these others, all these entrances, and there's one here, and then, you know, 500 feet down the road there's another entrance, and we can't build anything in between. And if you think about the volume of traffic that would add in a daytime, it's, you know, it's nothing really. You know, it's they're going to leave and they're going to come back. So top end, it's 4 times out of that thing. So anyways, just something that is coming to county council we will discuss.
Yeah, just because it's kind of counterproductive that we go into this without the other one being flexible.
But it works on our township roads though.
Yeah, okay, but there's not that many, yeah, okay.
Right. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is proposed exclusively on rural lots then?
Correct. It wouldn't apply to prime agricultural or in the in Maxwell, Alexandria, Summit, Salmon areas. The rural lots is what we're
Okay,
looking
well,
at, yeah.
you know, that makes sense to me, for sure. Why not make some of that land productive in terms of development, for sure? And I'm just curious about the other townships that opted not to go this route. like what, like if they had said yes, like what would be the disadvantage of that? I'm not certain. I can understand the advantage for us, but I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm just curious as to.
Yeah,
What the
I
reasoning?
think through the mayor, the county official plan recognizes each municipality has different needs and different pressures. I think previously a lot of them were 2006, so they didn't necessarily feel that this is a slight improvement, but it's not, this is kind of manageable growth. There's some municipalities where the date in the official plan was 1981 or 1980, so they felt, well, that's already 44 years and all these extra lots, we only really need 2. We're not so sure that we want 3 lots and every one starting from scratch. So, and then some of them just, like I spoke for North Dundas, they're getting so much pressure with Kemptville and Ottawa that basically they would kind of have an impact on some of their agricultural properties and aggregate properties and take away from some of the development in their villages. And for South Glengarry, I think it was the pressure in the waterfront development, making sure that's balanced with the needs of the rest of the municipality. So I think it's depending on the need of the municipality. So there's flexibility for North Glengarry to go a bit beyond, just because the pressures are different here, and can also help if there's service and capacity issues to have room for growth in some of the rural communities too. So and I guess, one thing for North Dundas too is they're just spending, I think, 10-20 millions of dollars on some of their servicing. So I think just from the discussion at the council table, they were a bit reluctant to say, let's open it up all again.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just one
Go ahead.
other question. So the lots that would be created by these severances, they'd need to be like a decent size, I'm assuming. That's one of the challenges I've always found is, but I know we're talking, the other severances are agricultural, and I think they should be made bigger. The provincial government doesn't agree. But, these other lots on rural, like how can we make sure they're not like postage size stamp lots?
The minimum in the official plan would be 1 acre. That could be looked at to be a little bit larger. I know sometimes for the modern standards for well and septic systems that you might want closer to 2 acres. As well, you want, especially if you're surrounded by a farm, room from your well for anyone that's spraying manure or anything like that nearby. So the minimum is 1 acre, the official plan. We could look at raising that. I know we're talking to our hydrogeologist to say, is there a good number based on all the soil types in the county? But for this policy, we would just stick with the 1 acre. North Glengarry is also, actually we had talked to Jacob about with updating the zoning bylaw. Council could also pick a higher number, or even not just the acreage, look at your frontage, so there's enough space between the uses. Maybe the acreage is fine, but you want a bit wider lots to have more of a country feel. So that could be a decision of your council on what's the best solution for North Glengarry.
Okay, so thank you for that. I think that would be a good discussion to have. Thanks, Peter.
You sure you don't want them to be lollipop lots?
Lollipop. My favorite.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Or Mr. Mayor, thank
Oh,
you.
no problem.
So before, we're allowed only 2 lots, and then the third one was, we had to enter it to a development situation. Is that how it, like a lot development or something? More than 2 was like too much, like the third one was a whole new bag of stuff, and then, so now the third one doesn't imply a big redevelopment plan or something. Is that what I mean?
Yeah, so right now the policy is you have 1 lot, you can create up to 2 more, you can't do any more than that.
Okay,
So there wasn't an exemption to do a 3rd lot.
okay,
This would allow, if the first 2 lots are already developed, if there's enough room for well and septic, because it's not too much strip development. So let's say this is a 100-acre lot, maybe that's a good one to say you can have 3 lots in that one. If it's only a tiny lot and you're trying to cram too many homes in there's not enough room, that's where they could probably only get 1 or 2.
okay.
So it's kind of a more flexible approach, because it's always a challenge where someone says, I have 200 acres, why am I allowed only 2 severances, and someone has 5 acres and they can get 2 severances. This allows a little bit more flexibility for those really big parcels if
So-
they have enough room to get the 3rd lot.
It still leaves us the opportunity to say yes or no, though, to the third one, if there's not enough room or something, because
Yeah, it's through like
The
sorry, go
amendments.
ahead, Jacob. The decision on the severances, the final decision is up to the United Counties
Okay.
through my office. But all of our severances are circulated to our North Glengarry staff, and Jacob and Chantal provide comments. So if they're aware of anything in the area or any concerns.
Okay.
Or if it doesn't meet the standards, then it needs a variance or bylaw amendment, then it goes back to council. So if they want to have it too small, you would need council approval to do that.
Okay, through the variance process, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Now, what about, let's say, 3 new lots were identified and they decided to, like, how close to the road can they build those houses? I just say that because, we have pressures with speeding, and the closer a house is to the road, the more sensitive a property owner is to the speed of vehicles traveling and that kind of thing. So what
I think you remember the top of your head?
Yeah, it's a new dwelling would have to follow our zoning bylaw setback. So it's 7.5 meter from the front property line to where he has to be. Sorry, no, it's 20 meters for rural. So he has to follow that. It's in our zoning bylaw. So however the lot is created, he still have to be 20 meters from the front property line to the beginning of his dwelling.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And that's adequate in terms of, like, it's not
Yeah, I've never.
right on the road, side of the road or anything?
It's pretty common. When we did the review for the zoning bylaws, he left it the same
Okay.
because, yeah.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the idea. I would encourage maybe like a 1.5 acre size, and the only reason I say that is to try and keep some of the character on the rural roads instead of getting houses that end up being too close, or call it ribbon development for lack of a better term, if we end up severing off across the front of a couple of these. And I don't think most of them would be an issue, but I think there would be a few that would come up as an issue. And if it's set at the county level at a 1.5 and we can change our zoning and go to a 2, then it's gonna leave us lots that allow for a little bit more character as far as the build and as far as the layout. Because obviously the wells are gonna be a geological issue, and the septics are as well. Really, that's about it. I like the idea of 2, and I like the idea of the potential 3rd, and that being an individual process makes good sense to me. And ideally, it opens up some possibilities for a lot of folks, maybe some folks, to stay on their property if they can sever off and sell some lots, either as getting older or, families wanting to live close together but don't necessarily want to get into the trap of building 2 houses on a property and then they've got a property with 2 houses to sell. It leaves a lot more options for a lot of people, I think. So I think overall it's a great idea.
Okay, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we'll have a discussion about our new zoning bylaw soon, even if the county's OP says 1 acre, we could just change our zoning bylaw to ask for 2 acres, right?
Definitely, yes.
Well, yeah, so we can have that, we could just change it to whatever council feel is the best for rural lot and change that in our new zoning bylaw. That's it, that's all. It doesn't have to go to OP.
So, but then does that not, if the ultimate say sits with the counties and there says an acres, ours says 2 acres?
They still have to follow our zoning
Okay,
bylaw.
perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, last question. It just brings to mind that currently we're allowing 2 residences on 1 lot. So what if all of a sudden we've got 3 new lots and 6 new houses? That could happen.
Yes, that'll probably happen eventually, because in our new zoning bylaw, all the lots, like we'll have that discussion as well, but all the lots are gonna be able to have 3 dwelling, if there's room for septic, and if there's enough water, and if there's enough room for the 3 houses as well, but yeah, it could happen, yes.
So that would to me, that would allow ribbon development, because 6 houses in a short period of time is
But it
kind
would
of
be
like
on a-
that.
It would be on a township road.
Yeah,
Most of our township roads are not.
so that wouldn't be a big
Not
deal?
high-speed volume, I wouldn't think so, but.
Well,
No.
also keep in mind that it's not a freebie to get a future severance. Like, you have to keep your 3 houses on that same property and using that one same driveway. So you won't be able to have like 3 driveways on that one property. It's just 3 houses on the property.
Yeah.
So you would not have that like boom, 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 be like more on.
I can't help but think that one day that's gonna come back and bite us, I don't know, but. I know,
Yeah.
but still, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments from anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? The motion is carried, none opposed. Thanks again, Peter, for coming down. Appreciate it very much. Okay, moving on to Public Works Department, passage of farm equipment on unopened road allowances. Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report PW 2024-25, passage of farm equipment on unopened road allowances, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry approves the unopened road allowances bylaw 32-2024, and that bylaw 32-2024 be read first, second, and third time and enacted in council this 22nd day of July 2024.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Rural Committee has been hard at work, working on this unopened road allowance bylaw, trying to figure out the best way to allow for the passage of farm equipment on these pieces of land. They are essentially pieces of land that are left for future transportation needs, so future roads. So the Rural Committee was convened to discuss rural and agricultural issues, and they provided this recommendation that we adopt the bylaw. They meet the third Thursday of every month at 6:30, and it was a some very useful discussions, very different rural users. So these are our unopened road allowances within the township. So one of the first things that we needed to do was distinguish the difference between an unopened road allowance and a green road, because they are often confused. This is our road inventory with them all overlaid. I'm gonna flick backwards and forwards really quick so you can kind of really get a sense. So we really do have a lot of these unopened road allowances. However, they are essentially the gaps that are left in between properties. So as each property was laid out, and these are probably done in the 1800s, these were the strips of land that were left over that said, okay, maybe someone may need this in the future for a future road or something similar. So that's our current road inventory. And then we did an assessment to see roughly how much there is. There is quite a lot, 195 kilometers. Using an average, we got 481 acres. However, there is a big problem with this, which is, and I like to call it Schrodinger's road allowance. So because the road allowances are not, I appreciate that somebody gets the joke. Because the road allowances are not actually laid out, as in there's not 4 pins for the road allowance, there are the pins for each of the properties, and the road allowances are the pieces that are left in between. It makes it very expensive if somebody wants to use that road allowance, because until you go and measure it, the road allowance, you don't know where it starts and where it begins. And measuring it has to be done by a legal land surveyor, who can be very expensive, especially for a road allowance which is very long. So that is our main issue. This is what the Municipal Act says about the road allowances, which essentially lays out our powers. The law that really defines how you can use them is common law rite of passage. So that's essentially all that applies right now until we actually open a bylaw, open a road under a bylaw. We don't have any responsibility there. There's no liability to the township. We don't need to maintain it. So there does become this big concern if people start using them and there's this liability question. They need to remain unopened for our budget to stay in check because it's very expensive to maintain them as an aggregate. We summarize it here. North Glengarry owns and can pass laws regarding unopened road allowances in the township. The public currently has common law right of passage over road allowances unless the municipality restricts it. And road allowances are not required to be maintained by the municipality unless they are opened by a bylaw. Now, when it comes to the passage of farm equipment, the issue isn't actually so much the passage of the equipment, but the two issues you run into is the farm equipment running into someone else's property and the farmer and defining where it is and also modifying the road allowance so it's suitable for this traversal of farm equipment. Lots of these road allowances are generally not the ones that are being proposed to be used, but a lot of these road allowance could be swampy, it may not look like a road at all. It could just be an area. So that's one of the things that we had to really define. So the new bylaw would allow farmers to use unopened road allowances for the passage of farm equipment. It really establishes a framework for how this is to happen. And to boil it down, essentially what it does is it gives an agreement. So you would make this application to the township and then you would get a form. And that form requires the signatures of the adjacent landowners to the piece of unopened road allowance that you want to use. And it's essentially up to the applicant to go out, and there's assistance from the township staff, but it's essentially up to the applicant to go out and to contact these landowners and to engage them in conversation and get their agreement. And really what the agreement needs to be is that there is a common landmark, so an old fence or maybe there's already a rough road there, something like that, that they can use to say, yes, this is absolutely where the road is. And they write this down on a formal piece of paper that that allowance can continue for this. They can actually specify the number of years they want it to be there, or they could have it keep on going or keep on going. And it remains that way until the township decides to cancel it, or the owner decides to cancel it, or they sell their property, in which case it's automatically cancelled. It's not transferable between owners. There is a fee as well that allows us to go and post a sign at the start that says this is an unopened road allowance. You're not protected by any insurance or anything past that point. It's not maintained by the township. And that agreement only gives the permission for the farmer to move his farm equipment. So it doesn't open it up for all the landowners to use or anything. It's just for the passage of the farm equipment. If one of the other owners wants to move their farm equipment, they need to they need to go and do their own application. The reason for that is they're probably going to be moving between different sets of property, so maintaining a different portion. It also means that there's a quid pro quo, so I'm going to sign your agreement if you sign my agreement, right? So sorry, I should have flicked that sign for that, but that's the application. A big part of it is creating a map. So there's no cost to it. We can help create the map, or you can also go online, use the land registry to be able to create it. On land, all you really need is a map like that. Zoom in, shows the properties, and essentially you're going to sketch on there this particular rock or whatever it is. Now what happens is, what this bylaw does, it allows for the passage of farm equipment officially, but it still puts the onus on the applicant to make sure they're staying within all of the restrictions. So the applicant still needs to come to an agreement with all their neighbors. if one of the neighbors decides that they don't want this farm equipment to go through there, the farmer can still do it, but they need to pay a land surveyor to survey the portion that's required and post, these are the 2 pins, and then they have to stay within it. Because our issue as a municipality is we don't want to be the adjudicator of somebody going onto someone else's land. It's a neighbor dispute, and we really don't want to be a part of it. This is the best way to make everyone really play nicely inside the sandbox. The motivation, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about the motivation of each of the parties to create the agreement. If you're an adjacent landowner and a farmer wants to come in and do this, I would say that your motivation to enter into the agreement is that you actually have an opportunity to go and have a say in how that land is going to be used. So you can enter into that agreement and say, I agree that you should be able to move your tractor here and you don't cut down this tree that I like, for example. Maybe that breaks down and it doesn't work, in which case the farmer has to pay and put these 2 pins in, which is a real shame, but it's sort of the best way to go about it, because we're primarily these road allowances are primarily on the back of agricultural land, and they've really been used to move farm equipment in the past, and as it gets bigger and bigger, there really just becomes a need to create something like this so we can really solidify it. So there has to be a meeting on site. So, sorry, these are supposed to be the steps. You go and you find the application, you can download it, or you can come into the office and we'll give them an application. You create the map, you can do it yourself, or you can wait for an appointment with one of us. They will have to wait for an appointment because it will be more time consuming than other activities. Then they meet with their neighbors, and then the implementation. So once they bring it back to us to say, with all the signatures on it, there is also an expiry date. So there's 7 days that they have to contact all of the residents, and then there is a 60-day period for to get a response. And if after 60 days, if there's no response at all, then they're considered to be in the negative, and then the farmer would have to get paid to go and put those posts. Or he doesn't have to, but he can either go and try and contact them again, or he can pay to put the posts there and just stay within those. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with the first question. Just there's in the bylaw, there's provisions for fees for signposts, fees for crossings if there's an issue, fees for survey. And I think it's under, and it says that the council won't borne any extra cost, that it's revenue neutral other than the cost of us managing it. Where does it doesn't say anywhere, and maybe I missed it, it doesn't say anywhere where the cost of maintaining that for the farmer to go through there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the cost, because it's not open to the public, the farmer maintains it in the manner which it needs to be maintained to move his farm equipment, and that's it. So we have no hand in it apart from putting the sign up, and we'll maintain the sign. And the sign just says this is a unopened road allowance. The public are.
But would it not be prudent just to put a clause in there saying that the farmer's responsible for, the upkeep of getting his whatever he has to do, that we don't borne any cost on that, just for the future?
It wouldn't hurt. It is also inside the agreement.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely, it wouldn't hurt for sure.
Okay, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Tim. Like the idea. Just an offhand thought, with these being presumably opened and visibly used, any thoughts on issues with like ATVs or anything like that? And if so, then what?
Through Mr. Mayor. So currently, we don't permit ATVs to use anything but a hard top service road. Do ATVs use green roads and unopened road allowances? Absolutely, I'm sure they do. I don't think that that passing this bylaw is going to really change that. I think all this bylaw is going to do is take the unopened road allowances that are already used in this way and put an agreement in place, because the farm equipment's getting wider. The public already has common law right of passage, so people are already able to use these unopened road allowances to cross through just common law. However, the problem becomes that they now want to modify them as the equipment gets bigger. So that's really the problem that it solves. I don't think it's going to create another problem. But you are correct that it could create another problem if somebody wanted to go and, say, open up a completely brand new one that's never been touched before. I don't know if the rural committee considered opening up a brand new one, but I really don't think it's much of a risk. There is, for the ones that we have been getting applications for, they're generally all, or comments about, they're all roads that are already existing or unopened road allowances that have something that has passed there before. So it's possible, but I think it's a remote possibility.
Go ahead, Councilor Massey.
Yeah, so just, thank you then for the, so just to give a brief history on why we ended up needing these things. Nowadays, the farms are getting bigger, so the one owner will buy several farms, and he might buy one across from, like, is 100 acre here, 100 acre there, and going around on the roadway is not always ideal, so and there are a lot of the farms now. Back then, there was not too many connected, or maybe with family members or whatever, but now they can access that road there, so that's where the demand came in. The township had no bylaw to govern that. Like, remember a few years ago, we had an issue in Dalkeith, La Hill area, down to Kirkhill, and that could have been worked out better if we would have had that bylaw back then. Because let's say there's a tree on an unopened road allowance in the middle of the road. Like, if you cut the tree, is it the guy cut the township tree, or? So now it clearly states that the guy that needs to go through after getting all these agreements in check, he can cut that tree down to allow himself, because it belongs to everyone. So it's not the township property. It was just to define that, I think. And we see that more and more, I think, now. So anyways, just to give a little bit of context.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
How wide would these allowances be? Like, how wide are we talking?
Through Mr. Mayor, they vary. So I would hope that they're all 20 meters, but they are probably more like 10 to 12. They're very old, and probably the item in their mind of something going down there was more of a buggy and pony than a truck. It's farm equipment, hard stuff.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? I just want to say good job to the Rural Committee, and thank you for bringing this forward. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, multi-year waste services contract, Councilor Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move on myself, seconded by Councilor Madden, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report PW 2024-22, multi-year waste services contract, and that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry authorizes the mayor and clerk to enter into a multi-year agreement with GFL Environmental for an estimated amount of $194,993 per year for 5 years, with a 5-year renewal option.
Thank you, Councilor. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So thanks to the Regional Waste Management Committee, which was a a project of former warden. We have essentially a proposal here. The Regional Waste Management Committee got together and went to GFL to try and negotiate a contract that would be the same across all municipalities, and that was what we got. And for North Glengarry, it's quite good for us. We see a reduction in the rate by $7 per metric ton, which is amazing. So it's very good, and I wanted to thank STG and former warden for making sure we had the Regional Waste Management Committee, because it's been really good. I've found that everything really comes out in the wash for this year's budget, because for one portion, we've already been a significant way through the year at the old rate. This would switch us to the new rate. But also, when I was estimating on last year, I was using older tonnage figures. So I think the tonnage is probably going to increase. So I don't think that we're going to see a surplus there. But I could be wrong. It's just trying to estimate how much waste we're actually producing. And now that we do have a new waste contract, as we go forward with the better equipment, those tonnage estimations should be better in the future as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Tim. I don't remember the last time I saw something decrease by 9%. Truly. I don't remember the last time I saw something decrease by 9%. So there might not be a surplus, but it allows us a little bit of room, which is great, just in terms of, as you say, there may be more tonnage, but with the same budget, it allows us to get a little bit more done. So awesome, and good job on the group, the SDNG group. I know everybody's been spending a good bit of time on it, so good on you.
Good. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for this. It's really good to see that the Regional Waste Management Group has actually, gelled and managed to bring the region together and to save us all some money. That's exactly what this was all about at the start, and great success. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, items under the consent agenda. Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives the items from the consent agenda for information purposes only.
Are there any questions on the items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And notice of motion, next regular public meeting of council, Monday, August 12th at 6 p.m. No question period. And we will be going into closed session. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Massey. As this matter deals with proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board, they may be discussed in closed session under section 239(2)(c) of the Ontario Municipal Act.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back. Thanks, everyone.